What are you presenting to me today?
I'm telling my story.
Okay.
And I want to because I felt like I've tried to tell it to the people that you're supposed to tell it to, and I wasn't heard. And that's not good enough for me. And then he how do I tell him, please don't do this without making him angry or feeling humiliated? Because if I humiliate him, how angry is he going to be at me? What else would he do? My body, I couldn't move it. I was numb. I was so numb. I couldn't believe it happened. I said, okay. I promise I won't tell anybody. And I didn't for 2 months. I survived. I don't have to be alive. I do not have to be alive. I went to undergrad for education, secondary English education, and I didn't really want to study that. My dream was to go to Temple for theater and to get my BFA and to start doing immediately what I really want to be doing, but for extenuating circumstances, I went for education. A couple of friends that had already gone down to Regent for their MFA, and they're like, Maranatha, we really want you should come audition to get your MFA. But I went down and I auditioned and then I got in, and that's the direction of my life now. One of the people in my cohort, I became friends with him, best friends, and then he made a couple of comments in class that just sounded like, oh, he's got a thing for Maranatha, okay. And I was like, oh, that feels so good, and I liked him back. And I remember in the car he kept saying, like, I just hope you know you're basically my sister. Like, I love you so much, you're basically my sister. Things, it really feels like you've got feelings for me. And he laughed at me. He just thought it was the funniest thing he's ever heard. And I remember I was so embarrassed, so I decided to pretend that never happened and just ignore my feelings and just put them away. We stayed friends, but it got close and codependent and needy. He had my debit card, and he basically had full use of my car all the time, and then he made me co-sign for a loan with him, and it just and I constantly felt like I was trying to prove I was a good friend. And anytime I acted like I felt like I was being taken advantage of, he would make me feel so terrible. Like, how could you say that you're so selfish? Fine, I just won't even be your friend. I'm just here to take care of you. I mean, I see you like my little sister and you're just so ungrateful. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Please, I don't mean that. I'm your best friend. I promise. I love you. You go, I feel if you don't want to be my friend, then I have nobody in the whole world. Like, I'm alone. And I was like, no, you're not alone. I promise. And he would open up to me about things in his past, and I would assure him that he was so loved and stuff. And then it just got so emotionally intimate and confusing. And then he was like, there's a girl I want to go out with, get her for me. And I was like, whatever you want, I'll do anything you want. Just don't be mad at me. I couldn't handle him being mad at me. Over that summer, he asked me if for August into a little bit of September, if coming back from break, he could stay at my place. I lived in a townhouse with my 2 roommates, and neither of them were going to be there. Something about his apartment wasn't ready yet, where he was renting. So I was like, of course you can come stay with me. I've done everything else for you. I mean, we've gotten a Spotify membership together. I buy your stuff on Amazon, and you store your tools at my house. It just was like, of course you can come sleep at my place for a few weeks. When I picked him up from the airport, he was different. He was very needy. like emotionally, but like cuddly needy. Not like he was crying, but he was just like, he wanted to like just hold me all the time, which was weird. He'd never been physically affectionate with me before. Like, never, ever physically affectionate with me. But all of a sudden now he just wanted to hold me and hug me and kiss me on my cheeks. It was a little bit like, I felt like I was finally being validated as someone he loved. Because love for him had always been like, I'm hard on you, I lecture you, I tell you what to do, and that's how I love you. That's love. And he was finally like being tender with me, and he'd never been that way before. I just figured our friendship wasn't like that, or whatever. So I picked him up from the airport. I drove him back to my house. He spent the night that night. And then the next night, he's like, let's watch a movie. And I was like, yeah, okay. And I sat on the couch next to him, because I always have, but we've never snuggled, we've never cuddled, we've never touched each other. We've been friends for 2.5 years at this point, okay? And all of a sudden he's like, oh, we should turn the lights off. And I was like, oh, okay, sure. And I turned the lights off. And he's like, come sit next to me. And I was like, okay, all right. And he put his arm around me, and I'm like, I just felt loved. I was like, oh my gosh, like, he does love me. He does care about me. And I don't even just mean like, I mean just in the sense of love. I've done so much for this person, and they finally love me back. I've earned this. I've earned a little bit of affection after everything I've done for you. And then he wanted, he and then he pulled me closer. And then he started touching me. And I was so shocked that he would touch me. I didn't even understand what was happening. And then add in the factor that up until that point, I had never been sexually intimate with anybody in any capacity. I definitely never had sex. I'd never even kissed somebody. So I didn't know what he was doing. I just remember being like frozen. And then he said to me, I hope you know I really want to be with the girl, her name, but I'm really attracted to you right now, and I need you to just let me hold you. I'm really physically attracted to you, and I just need this right now. So my job is to be there for him and give him what he needs. It's always been that. That's always been my job. But I was really freaked out because I didn't want to be sexually intimate with him. And I said, what are you doing? He didn't really answer me. He just kept touching me. And then finally he started like attacking my belt. I had pants with a belt on. And I said, wait. And he said, shh. And I said, nothing below the belt. And he said, it's okay. I'm not going to hurt you. I want to do something for you. And I was like, are you sure? I was so afraid. For some reason, telling him to get off wasn't an option in my brain, because anytime I'd ever countered him, he had always shut me down. I don't know how to say no to him. I never had, but I didn't want it, and I was trying so hard to figure out, how do I tell him, please don't do this, without making him angry or feeling humiliated, because if I humiliate him, how angry is he going to be at me? What else would he do? What would he tell other people? I don't know. But I was like, I just stopped talking, and I just started silently crying. I didn't make any noise, just tears came down my face. And I don't remember if I said it out loud, but it was such a weird dreamlike state. I felt like I was leaving my body, so it almost feels like I dreamed it. But I remember saying, this is going to ruin our friendship. But he didn't really say anything else after that. He was breathing too hard. He took off my shorts. He took off my panties. And I just kind of left my body. And I was hovering above the situation, just kind of watching it happen. And then after a minute or so, or hour or year or month, however long it was that he was where he shouldn't be, he looked at me with this face of yeah, did you like that? And I just looked at him and he was like, tell me what you want. And I said, I want to go to bed. I want to go upstairs and I want to go to bed. My body, I couldn't move it. I was numb. I was so numb. I couldn't believe it happened. And he stood me up. He put my pants back on for me and he picked me up and he carried me upstairs. And once he put me on my bed, he took off my pants and just did it all over again. And then afterward, he told me, we don't ever need to talk about this. You don't ever need to talk about this. You don't need to tell anybody. This doesn't change anything. I said, okay. I promise I won't tell anybody. And I didn't for 2 months. I held it inside me while he dated this other girl until finally she broke up with him because she felt like something was off. And as soon as they broke up, he had me come over to his house and he tried again. But in that moment I was like, no, I'm not letting you go to that place on my body again, because I know I don't want it. And I made up a reason to leave. I was like, oh my God, I'm late for rehearsal, I gotta go. Because I didn't want to tell him, I don't want you touching me. I was so scared of what he would say if I told him, I don't want you touching me. But I knew I would not let him touch me there again. I would not. So I went to rehearsal. And then I got really, really sick. I got so sick. I almost, from the inside, my ovaries had gotten all twisted and I had this cyst that was bleeding. It got so bad I had to be rushed to the hospital for emergency surgery to save my life, and that was my wake-up call. I nearly died, and I spent a week recovering. My body was exploding from the inside because I was trying so hard to pretend nothing happened. But my whole body knew something happened that wasn't supposed to happen. So, God bless my roommate. She was available. She knew something had happened but didn't want to press it because she wanted me to come to her when I was ready. When I got back from my week of recovering in the hospital, I came back to school. She just sat there in the kitchen with me and just kind of looked at me, and finally I just told her. I told her everything. And she and my other roommate and a couple of my friends took me to the office at school, the Title IX office, to report it. I was like, I don't want to go to the police. I don't want to go to the police. I don't want to ruin his life. I don't want to ruin his life. I'm so afraid of ruining his life. I don't want to ruin it. And they're like, no, Maranatha, you have to report it. You have to. That's the right thing to do. The school had no interest in really doing anything about it. I'll just say it. I was attending Regent University in Virginia Beach. A decent school with the statistics of being one of the safest campuses in this country. And they really didn't want to address this. They said, oh, well, we're going to issue a no contact order, so just don't talk to him, and he won't talk to you. And I'm like, We have to go to class together. We're in acting classes of 9, 10 people at most that are interacting at all times. I can't be near him. I'm terrified. And then when we finally had our hearing, he offered his statements. I offered mine. His was a jumbled mess of, well, she this, well, she that. She wanted it. She didn't lock the bathroom door. She was wearing short shorts. And my statements was, we were sitting together on a couch. He moved in closer. I got scared. He kept going. I said nothing below the belt. He went below the belt. Blow by blow in graphic detail. With my voice shaking, I said everything he did to me. Based on everything he said, I was told, yeah, he's probably going to get expelled. Like, this, it's so open and shut clear that he's incriminating himself. The school only wanted to suspend him. They're like, okay, so we find that they said he's guilty of sexual harassment. That's what he's guilty of. Not assault. Harassment. And because he's guilty of sexual harassment, we're going to suspend him until your graduation date, Maranatha. And then he's going to return to finish his degree. And I was so unsatisfied. I then went to the police to report him. I went in to speak to a detective, and he was very abrasive and annoyed. He was annoyed. He was irritated that I was there. He was irritated that I was in his office taking up his time. He made fun of me for bringing somebody with me. I brought my roommate with me, and he was like, "What? Can't do this by yourself?" And my roommate was just like, who talks that way to somebody else? And then he and I had to go to a room by ourselves. I laid out the whole story to him, and he like, let's be real. You're just a burnt girlfriend who didn't get what she wanted, and so now you're trying to get him in trouble. He closed the case and dismissed it. I later called the precinct and said, can I please speak to another detective? I need to speak to a female detective. And they're like, well, we can't really have you speak to a female detective because the case has been closed and dismissed, so we can't reopen it. I was like, no, I don't feel like I was fairly heard. I wasn't listened to. And they're like, sorry, we can't do anything about it. So this is where I'm at. Trying to do all these things that you're supposed to do when you're assaulted. Like, don't wait, go to the police, go to this, go to that. They'll do something about it. That's their job. It wasn't until 2 months after he was issued his suspension that he broke his suspension by trying to contact me through a couple of mutual friends. The terms of his suspension was that if he follows his suspension to the letter, he would be allowed to come back. The ways he would break his suspension would be setting foot on the campus, anywhere on the campus, contacting me in any form, so phone, text message, email, letter, and third party, where he asks someone to come speak to me on his behalf. I was actually at an audition, a really big one, waiting to go in for my callback, when all of a sudden I'm getting text messages and phone calls from 2 other people, both saying, hey, he asked me to get a hold of you because of he wants this or that, because he left a ton of his stuff at my house. Like, he basically like half lived there, and like now 2 months later, after 2 months of being in his suspension, now he all of a sudden wants his stuff back. I screenshotted everything and I took it with me. I got back to the school. I went into the office of the vice president of student affairs, and I said, look, he's talking to me through third party, attempting to contact me via third party, and this needs to be addressed. And the vice president said, well, I'll call him and tell him to stop doing that. He'll stop bothering you. And I was like, no. And I sat myself in his office, and I was like, I told myself, I said to myself, I'm not moving from this office until he is expelled. And I said to him, I was like, no, you said in his suspension, in the terms of his suspension, which was given to me and to him and put on file, that should he break his suspension in any form, he would immediately be expelled. And he's like, well, let me check to make sure that that's what I said. And he goes over in the office, he pulls open the drawer, and he's like going through the files, and he pulls it out, and he's like, oh yeah, I did say that. And so he was expelled. And I felt really guilty about it because I felt like I ruined his life. I kind of told myself, maybe if I had just gotten over it. You know, it's one mistake. Everybody makes mistakes. If I had just dealt with it, then maybe he wouldn't need to have been expelled. He wouldn't need to lose all those friends, because those were his friends too. We had all mutual friends. Sometimes those thoughts still come back to me. And I still wonder if I ruined his life. And I wonder if he'll ever feel bad about it. Or if he ever will believe that he did something wrong.
I think that's nothing. I'm gonna take a break.
No, I don't want to.
You're so strong. You did really good. You didn't seem nervous at all.
I think that's because I was just so focused on telling the story to you. Because I knew you were listening. That's the difference, is somebody listening.
So it's like every time you tell a story, you're taking the power back.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Every time I tell the story, I get more of my power back. This is my project. So when I was kind of right after we had our school hearing and they had determined that they wanted to suspend him, I decided I don't know what to do with this. There's so much inside me, I don't know what to do. So I just started writing. I survived. I don't have to be alive. I do not have to be alive. And I kind of looked at it and it was very cathartic. But then over the next couple of days, I was like, I might add a little more. Just kind of fill out the story. You know, start doing some gigs and whatever, trying to live this artist life and trying to audition and work and teach and all these things. And I got to know a really talented director, Carly Botner. Absolute genius and so good at developing new work and working with fresh playwrights. And I got to know her, teaching with her in, theater teaching. And I asked her, hey, do you think you could read this script and just tell me what you think? And she read it and she came back to me and she said, I want to direct this. Let's make this show happen. And I was just like, whoa. You believe this story should be told, that it's good enough. Because it's kind of messy, it's uncomfortable, it's raw, it's what happened. And she said, yeah, let's develop it. She workshopped it and edited and developed it with me for nearly 2 years. And now it's happening. And I really want people to hear it. But this is not my story alone. Many, many people share this story. And by me putting it out there in a public sense, I'm voicing all those other stories as well, because how many people out there were too afraid to come forward or tried to come forward and were shamed into being silent or told to shut up or scared into never speaking, or believe that maybe their trauma doesn't count as trauma, or don't believe that they even have a story to tell and they're still convincing themselves that they deserved what happened to them. And my biggest desire with this story is to validate all those other stories that are already out there. And to celebrate people for surviving it. I survived. I don't have to be alive. I do not have to be alive. I could have killed myself. I could have been killed. Who knows? There were moments when I got really close to being dead. Multiple times. But I am not. I lived. I even lived while it was happening. I didn't have to stay alive while it was happening, let alone survive the aftermath. I was a survivor when I was in it, and I was a survivor when I exposed it, and I was a survivor when I was healing from it. So I want to celebrate that type of survival in other people, because I know everyone out there has their own thing that they survived, and they deserve to celebrate that. Unveiled Faces. It is an artist collective started by me and one of my best friends, Will Mornick. We met in college and did a bunch of theater together. It's ultimately created because this story needed to be told, and I wanted to be told through a collective with a name and a purpose, which is to unveil the dignity of all human experiences and stories, to speak stories of survival with the voices of survivors. The name of my show is Of Mugs and Monsters, and it's exciting, it's scary, and it's everything I'm supposed to be doing. Unveiled Faces is meant to be a safe space for people to speak their stories and be validated and heard and represented. Thank you so much for watching and for hearing my story. It really means a lot to share this with you. And for those of you who share my story, you got this and you deserve to speak yours. And if you want to tell me yours, I am all ears and I crave your stories. Don't forget to put on your calendars. Of Mugs and Monsters is going to be running at the Plays and Players Theater in Center City in April. I'm going to post details, where you can get tickets, where you can get show info, and where you can find out about upcoming projects.